Hey folks, it's Sam, and you see I'm making this recording today about Jupiter in Gemini, May 14th, 2025 until June 1st, 2026. For the most part, Jupiter is going to be in Gemini, marks a big shift where Jupiter has been in Taurus for the last year, bringing our teachings into our daily life and habits and routines, and hopefully things like diet. And so it's been, a bit of a difficult energy there because, Jupiter is more of an abstract type of concept and Taurus is very, practical and down to earth. But today I'm going to be talking about Jupiter's, movement into Gemini. And so this will be a huge shift for the next 12, 13 months off and on. And I'm also, as you can see, I actually have a web class that I'm also doing that you can also register for. That will be done live May 11th, here in a few days, but then the recordings into perpetuity. So go and register for that. And as you see, there's also, as it says here on the screen, spiritual reset. In this free live class, I'll break down what Jupiter and Gemini means for all 12 signs, of course, how to use this pretty much 13-month transit to unlock clarity and growth without getting lost in the noise. Meditations and intentions and inspiring stories will also be part of this. It's really a sort of gathering to talk about really what Jupiter is, this concept of belief, inspiration, purpose. But again, it's a very abstract thing. It's very easy for us to want to believe in something, even if we don't understand it. We see so much of this right now, where people worship and believe in, again, not just religion or whatever, but, for example, political leaders or movements, or we just kind of believe it because it gives us a sense of purpose in a world that seems to not have any, right? When we get lost and we can't seem to find any kind of meaning or purpose, that's the environment that's most ripe for blind faith and believing in things that we don't understand. Just like Stevie Wonder said, when you believe in things you don't understand, you're going to suffer. Superstition ain't the way. Terrible singing with no accompaniment. I'm not Stevie Wonder. But the song Superstition, based on that. When you believe in things you don't understand, you'll suffer. So Jupiter in Gemini is trying to understand the things you believe, and then make a correction, because you're not meant to just have blind faith. You're supposed to understand what you believe, and you're meant to understand the nature of the universe. This is why Jupiter and Mercury are the two planets most connected to astrology, actually, because Jupiter is the bigger picture, and Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is all the details. So again, as it says here in this other card, here at the bottom, belief and discrimination, Jupiter, the planet of teachings, inspiration, and expansion, enters Gemini, the sign of ideas, speed, information. So what happens when the guru moves into the realm of details and fast thinking? Listen, all gurus, all great teachers can explain how the teachings work. And if they can't, then they're not a very good teacher. That includes Satgurus, yogis, religious figures, political figures. You can tell if they're worth listening to or following because what do they tell you? How do they explain? Let's say if it's politics, how do they explain their policies? Do the things they say make sense, or are they just making things up? And when you fact check them, none of it makes any sense. Well, leaders who are trying to lead you somewhere, but then everything they say to try to explain why they're doing it is wrong or makes no sense, then we lose faith in what they are doing and saying and where they are leading us. So again, you want to understand though, because many times Jupiter, as much as any planet, is, you'll hear it. I'm sure all the astrologers around you that you hear now that are talking about it's like they'll use the word spirituality. Jupiter's your spirituality. Okay. It's really not. It's what you believe. You can believe anything, not necessarily spiritual belief, but it tends to guide you spiritually, because spirituality and spiritual things are abstract. Like I said, it's very abstract what we believe. And what we believe gives us hope in a world that seems to not have any meaning or purpose. What's the purpose of all that? Well, as a human being, we're here to define our purpose, right? This is the existential creed, the existentialist philosophy movement. You know, Kierkegaard, Sartre, Hegel, the Hegelian dialectic, and, you know, Heidegger was the other one I'm thinking of. Especially Sartre, in his writings, at the end of, I think it's called Being and Nothingness, was the big book, but I think it was in this one where he said, man is a useless passion. And we have to define our own meaning, that eventually we wake up as an intelligent being, realizing that there is no inherent purpose to this. Other animals don't suffer that kind of existential crisis because they don't have self-reflection. I think, therefore I am, which is Descartes, leads to, okay, but who am I and why? Then why is it all here? And the existentialist philosophy of the early 20th century said, well, there is no point. We have to create our purpose. There is no purpose. By the way, that's the very Western philosophical perspective, which also is very reductionist. In Advaita Vedanta has a similar kind of thing, like where the life on this earth, that, you know, the real purpose is to awaken to self. This is the Eastern view, is that there actually is a purpose to it all. But to our ego, it seems like there is no purpose. And the purpose for our ego is to just keep accumulating and acquiring and winning and feeding itself. And if our whole life revolves around that and there's no bigger picture, which is Jupiter, then we eventually then the ego gets exhausted and arrives at something like existential angst. If you've ever read Jean-Paul Sartre, he's amazing. His plays, especially No Exit, they're hysterical exercises in existential angst, which is really just the failure of the ego to actually find meaning and purpose. The final conclusion of existentialism is that there is no point to all this, but that's all through the ego. And to the ego, there is no point. Eventually, the logical conclusion is none of this has any meaning whatsoever. But that's not, or that it's up to us to create the meaning. So again, that's what Jupiter is really doing. Think of it like that. That's where it starts, where the ego realizes, your separate self realizes that there's no point. So what is the point? So then we start grasping for philosophies to believe in. And that's what Jupiter is. What do we believe? And many times it's a kind of blind faith. So Jupiter in Gemini it's going into that area of intelligence and discrimination, where we examine with detachment, with discrimination, without bias, and not because, well, but I want to feel good, but I want to be happy, but I want to have this, but I want to have that. That's not very objective. Mercury and Saturn are the two energies that are objective, not passionate about wanting to win something, which is Mars and the Sun, and even Jupiter, to get somewhere, or feel good, which is the Moon and Venus. Well, I believe this thing because it makes me feel good. That's the Moon-Venus kind of bias. Or I believe this thing because it helps me accomplish what I need to accomplish. Those are the masculine planets. Mercury and Saturn are like, I don't believe anything because I just want to understand what's going on. These are neutral energies. So these are the things I'm going to go into in great detail on the web class. Register for it. Again, you can attend live on, what did I just say? I said the 11th, May 11th at 10 a.m. And you'll have recordings into perpetuity. But so it's a lot to examine about Jupiter and the sign of Gemini, about the things like, passion and belief and inspiration and purpose, and also detachment, discrimination, how Jupiter and Mercury really show authentic spiritual growth, because we don't just believe everything, we want it to make sense. And also, again, Mercury is where we can get stuck in all the details and forget the bigger picture. For example, all that existentialist philosophy. It's very interesting to read, and to me, it's hilarious. It's hilarious to me, but it loses the bigger picture. The problem with existentialism, and even a big problem with Advaita Vedanta, is that it collapses everything into a binary narrative, and it forgets the bigger picture. It's very Mercury, Virgo-like especially, but it loses the bigger picture, that we're not just this entity in this lifetime. But particularly Jean-Paul Sartre, his plays are hilarious. No Exit is one of the funniest plays ever. It's about three people in hell, and they torment each other. There's another one called The Dirty Hands. He has several, especially his plays are really great. Just a little tip there. His books are incredibly hard to get through. Being in Nothingness is like 1,000 pages of incredibly dense stuff, but the philosophies are very interesting. But anyway, so join me for that class live or whenever you're seeing this. And you need to really understand not just Jupiter and Gemini and getting greater insights into your beliefs and examining your biases, but also what it means for your sign, because it's going to be different. If you're Pisces, it's going to be happening in your 4th house, and Jupiter rules the 2nd and 9th house, right? If you're a Cancer person, it's going to be going through your 11th house, and Jupiter has just been in your 10th house. So I'm also going to talk about the shift, not just it's going to do this, but I'm going to start with, okay, Jupiter has been in your, like if you're Aries, Jupiter's been in your 2nd house. Now it's moving into the 3rd house. So I'm going to talk about this transition and how Jupiter, those beliefs are now moving from this area into that area. So I think you'll really like it. And so just go ahead and click the link here below and register for it, and we'll see you then. For a limited time, I'm offering 10 hours of masterclasses, Yoga and Vedic Astrology, Quantum Vedic Astrology, and Spiritual Astrology Masterclass. These are 3 great courses that will really help you a lot. Now, in case you don't know who I am, I taught the Astroved certification course, Dattatreya Shiva Baba, in 2010. Ravi Shankar published my book in 2018. I've been around for decades. I've been teaching these great classes, and if you go to VedicAstrologyEssentials.com, you can get this 90% off discount of these 3 great classes, more than 10 hours, guaranteed value. You can check this out. These 3 classes will give you all the necessary tools to begin to learn Vedic astrology. Please find me on YouTube at Sam Jeppy, Vedic Astrology Teacher. On there since 2007, thousands of hours of classes. Also on Facebook at Astrology Teacher, tons of articles updated regularly, and I'm on Instagram at Vedic Astrology 108, ongoing updates and interaction.